I appreciate that introduction. And Dylan, I just have to mention that when I started in this industry, my beard was about as dark as yours, and I stand here today, 30 years later, completely white. This has been. Let me just pause here for a minute and recognize what an awesome session this has been this morning. It was incredible, and so I'm grateful to be here. BioFire Defense is on a mission to bring the laboratory to the battlefield, ensuring that our military personnel are prepared for biothreats and pandemic, and pandemic agents. And so today I'm honored again to be here as your last line of defense before we break for lunch. So now I know you're probably wanting to get out of here quickly, but I don't want to keep you from your well-earned break, but I promise you that I'm here to share an unforgettable experience that has stayed with me for more than 20 years. And it's something that really, gets me up every day in the morning in this industry. And with that, I want to talk first about being a local Utah kid. I went, born and raised here in Utah, went to Cottonwood High School, got both of my degrees from the University of Utah. And I got my first job at a local medical device manufacturer. It was so fun coming here this morning as I pulled off of 123rd going west. And you pulled off here. I don't know, do any of you work with Edwards Life Sciences here? Right? Well, that building Edwards currently occupies used to be Ballard Medical, and that was my first job out of college. And to be honest, looking back, I couldn't imagine being in any other field. Now, in 2004, right after I finished my executive MBA at the University of Utah, I got my real first leadership role at another local medical device manufacturer called Sorensen Medical. Now, Sorensen Medical made an ambulatory infusion pump called the Ambit. For any of you marketers out here, Ambit, ambulatory infusion therapy. So it's a handheld infusion pump that could deliver a predetermined bolus of pain medication anytime, anywhere. It was battery powered. And back in 2014 or in 2004, that was pretty cool. But we hadn't yet seen its full potential. And then we got in contact with an Army anesthesiologist named Chester Tripp Buckenmeyer III. It's an awesome name. So he's an Army anesthesiologist and he goes by Tripp. So Tripp was working with us on the Ambit pump, and he said, hey guys, there is a unmet need out there. There are soldiers who are injured in the battlefield that could use a ambulatory pump to deliver pain medication on an as-needed basis that wouldn't keep them bedridden. So he invited me to go to see the Ambit in action at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center on the East Coast. And of course I said, yes, I'm in. Tell me about it, right? So for those of you who might not be aware, the Walter Reed was actually opened in 1909. And it's named after Major Walter Reed, who was a famous physician because he was led the group that figured out that yellow fever wasn't transmitted by human-to-human contact. It was actually transmitted by mosquitoes. And so this was my first trip to the Walter Reed, and it was, I'll never forget walking through those halls, right? You could feel the weight of history right as you step inside. Now, Tripp took me into the examining room, and they wheeled in a soldier who had been injured in Afghanistan. So Tripp was working on, soldiers coming back from the global war on terror. And this particular soldier, his arm was run over by a tank. Okay, so this was in Afghanistan. So that soldier was transported to Landstuhl, Germany for initial assessment. They ended up amputating his arm just below the shoulder. And so then from Landstuhl, they got him stabilized there and they sent him to Walter Reed. And so they wheeled him in. He was still experiencing tremendous pain from the arm that was amputated. So they call that phantom limb pain. So your brain still thinks that the appendage is still attached. So Tripp explained to the soldier, while he's laying on the bed there, is, look, I'm going to put in a nerve block catheter, and this nerve block catheter will be hooked up to the ambit infusion pump, and then we will be able to deliver a lidocaine, or for like when you go to the dentist you get Novocaine, right? We'll be able to deliver a precise dosage of pain relief medication right into the nerve that controls the arm that is no longer there. And, you can see the soldier was kind of in pain. And so Tripp rolled the soldier over onto his good side, right? So he's got his one hand right there, and he began to thread the catheter, so that they could get the nerve block done. And then you could just see the soldier's eyes light up, man. He was starting to feel that pain as they were moving him around. And I looked at the soldier, we caught eyes, because I'm there right at bedside, just wide-eyed with the soldier looking at him. And then I looked, and he had kind of started to open and close his hand slowly right there in front of me. And I knew exactly what he meant, right? So immediately I grabbed his hand. Okay. And so then when they started further threading the catheter, man, this soldier was built like a linebacker, and he just started to crush the daylights out of. I mean, I literally, my knuckles went white. I could feel my tendons straining, and I looked at there, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to break my hand. I mean, he was really built. But what I realized that time is the pain I was experiencing as he was crushing my hand was nothing, right? Nothing compared to what this soldier was going through. So we just stayed there. We'd locked eyes, right? And I just stayed there, and like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So Tripp threads the catheter, then he hooks up the ambit, and then he hits the button to deliver the medication to the nerve that's controlling his pain in his amputated arm. And then it was kind of silence. Slowly, the soldier's face started to, relax. His shoulders kind of hit back, and then he released my hand kind of gently. Right? So I stepped back, I looked at the soldier, and he looked up at me, and he just said two words. He said, "Thank you." That was it, right? Thank you were the two words out of the soldier's mouth, but those two words hit me like a thunderbolt. Because in that single moment, I understood why I was drawn to and why I continue to work in this industry. The experience showed me that a piece of technology that our team had just been pouring their hearts into could reach across an ocean into a battlefield and relieve sometimes the most excruciating pain people can, experience. And it just took it away. So I walked out of the Walter Reed that day a different person. I walked in, thinking about, ambulatory infusion pumps and dosing curves. And what I walked out with was thinking about soldiers, about the families that care for them, about people who are in need of relief of suffering, or to be cured of diseases. And so, and people that need to feel hope instead of despair. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I've spent every day since chasing that feeling. Right? Chasing the next way we can turn science into relief, technology into humanity, and innovation into impact. So today I have the privilege of standing here in front of you on behalf of two organizations that carry that same mission forward every single day, bioMérieux and BioFire Defense. We are co-sponsors of BioHive Live this year, and we couldn't be prouder to be here. Now, bioMérieux is just an incredible French family-owned company that's been around for about 125 years. The original Mr. bioMérieux worked with Louis Pasteur in laboratories in France, and they have been committed to diagnostics, how they can improve the human health around the world. And what makes me especially proud to be here on the stage is we're rooted right here in Utah. So between bioMérieux and BioFire Defense, we employ more than 3,500 employees in the state. It's pretty amazing. We are the second largest life sciences employer in Utah, and we're a homegrown Utah success story. Now that Utah connection actually runs deeper. So there were three brilliant minds at the University of Utah: Carl Whitwer, Kirk Ryrie, and Randy Rasmussen got together and at the University of Utah, and they became worldwide experts on PCR technology. And They ended up licensing that technology from the University of Utah in 1991 and built a company called BioFire Diagnostics. Now, bioMérieux, after some time had seen the tremendous potential of this technology and ended up acquiring BioFire Diagnostics in 2014. And since then, we have invested heavily to scale that technology globally and to bring it to more patients with an intense focus on helping physicians diagnose diseases and biothreats. The result of that is our film array system. It's one of the most powerful medical diagnostic tools in medicine today. In roughly 1 hour, a single test, so a single sample from a patient, can simultaneously detect dozens of viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens from that one patient sample. So to give you a few examples, our respiratory panel can detect screens for over 22 different targets. We have a blood culture identification panel that looks at about 43 of these targets. And then we have a pneumonia panel that covers 33. So instead of waiting days, to send that sample to the lab and get the lab to do the test and it could be 24, 48 hours back. Instead of that, you can actually get those results right there while the patient is still in front of you within an hour. It's pretty amazing. And really, what does that mean? It means faster treatment, fewer unnecessary antibiotics, and of course, better outcomes. And now we're bringing that same power even closer to the patient with the BioFire Spotfire system. Smaller, faster. It's a point-of-care platform that delivers respiratory results in almost 15 minutes. It's pretty extraordinary. Now, this is really diagnostics moving out of the central lab and into clinics, urgent cares, and community settings, exactly where every minute counts. And that same technology powers the work that we do at BioFire Defense, the company I am proud to lead. And as a part of that 2014 acquisition of BioFire Diagnostics by bioMérieux, they created an independent subsidiary, which is BioFire Defense, to serve the unique needs of the U.S. government and military customers. Now, BioFire Defense focuses on biothreat detection, biosurveillance, and protecting our troops and communities from both natural outbreaks like COVID or from man-made intentional biological threats. We use the same trusted PCR technology developed here in Utah. The BioFire Defense team partners with the Department of Defense, the CDC, BARDA, and other agencies to keep people on the front line safe from invisible enemies. Now, at the end of the day, whether I'm, remembering that soldier who, crushed my hand at the Walter Reed, or thinking about a mother in a Utah hospital who's worried about the virus, that their child has contracted, or even the soldiers and, people in the State Department throughout the world, trying to stay one step ahead of danger, our mission never changes. And what's important here is that this technology was born and raised right here in Utah, just like me. It started in a University of Utah lab. It was nurtured by Utah minds and Utah hands, and is now being delivered globally with its heart still firmly planted in the state of Utah. From that battlefield in Afghanistan to hospital rooms in Europe, clinics in Africa, and communities throughout Asia, this same Utah-born technology is still is changing how care is delivered throughout the world. Faster answers, earlier treatments, and lives saved. Now, as we've talked quite a bit, and as a part of our community here at BioHive, the power of what we do here in Utah is not, we're not just building devices or developing therapies that can, right here in Salt Lake. We're actually building hope that travels the globe. Now, Utah is truly a hub of medical innovation, and all of you here in this room, whether you're in a lab, in a startup, or scaling the next breakthrough, has the chance to do something that reaches far beyond our mountains here and touch lives that we may never meet. That handshake in a hospital room at the Walter Reed many years ago taught me that technology only matters when it is serving humanity. And that's what drives everybody at BioFire Defense and at bioMérieux every single day, today, tomorrow, and for as long as we're lucky enough to do this work. Now, what we do, right? We don't believe diagnostics just, detect diseases. They empower caregivers with actionable intelligence. They provide clarity and they protect communities. But most importantly, they prove that what starts here in Utah can truly change the world. Now, I hope that this has given you something powerful to think about over lunch, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.